Hi, Greg.
Hello, Hugh, and we have a guest today. This is my friend Jace, and pronounce your last name for me, Jace, the right way.
In Deutsch, it is Schoenhair. In America, my parents and my family say Shane hair, but I tell them they don't know how to say it right.
Well, we've been going on adventures here lately and trying to solve some murders here local. That's not what we're here to talk about today, but is some interesting things we've been doing on the side, and of course, you've
What
been
murder?
learning.
What murder were you trying to solve, Greg?
The case of Gretchen Fleming, the lady that was murdered here not far from
Oh,
where I
what
live.
what movies did the Fleming family write?
Now, see, that's the fascinating thing. The Flemings wrote 007. They wrote The Wizard of Oz, and The Wizard of Oz is specifically related to your life, Hugh.
So is 007. The Harris family and Austin Healey. James Bond always drove Austin Healey's. They're mentioned out here on the West Coast in plaques and statues in the parks. Austin and Harris, my grandfather, for making the James Bond movies.
Yeah,
Uh,
I hadn't got into the James Bond part of it yet, but we know all about the Wizard of Oz and how that's connected through your teacher and who
Osborne.
actually,
I
yeah.
I was kidnapped and tortured in Osborne's basement, and they murdered my identical twin in '57 on the day they murdered Admiral Byrd. That's
Well, and
correct.
your teacher was the actress who played the Wicked Witch on The Wizard of Oz in your
Correct.
first grade classroom.
Correct. Yeah. And then they introduced me to Dorothy, and I grew up with Garland, who is Biden's what do you call it? Attorney General of the USA after Barr. And Barr and Garland have hidden my truth of my identical twin and Admiral Byrd being murdered since 1957, those two families. And Osborne runs the FBI sex crime division right now. And all of this is related crime within the U.S. government. Um,
Yeah,
but
Mike Osborne and Gina Osborne run the sex crimes division of the FBI. That's fascinating.
those two families kidnapped me and murdered my identical twin. And the Osborne family and the Hall family, Daryl Hall, were having sex with me when I was 4. And these are all crimes. When I say my truth, uh, they like to say I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not a theorist. I had to go to get shots of penicillin and sulfa because of venereal disease. Osborne and Hall and Wallace and Long gave to me as a 4-year-old. And that's why I'm allergic to penicillin to this day, because I would get 4 to 6 shots a day for months. They were treating me for venereal diseases at 4 because Osborne kidnapped me and chained me to a toilet in his basement. And they had sex with me. So there's a long history of STDs in kids in Michigan related to the Osborne family. And this is not a theory. It's my life, and it's in my medical records.
Mhm.
I, I interrupted you at the beginning. Today is the March 7th full moon video. And we usually make a full moon video here. So Jace, you live in Ohio near Greg.
Yeah, I live on the West Virginia side. I'm in Parkersburg.
My cousin, he piloted the Enterprise in the Vietnam War. And he's a dean at Radford University in Virginia ever since the Vietnam War ended. So I know the area where you live. My wife was murdered real close to where you live, Chase. Victoria Mellon. They dismembered her. They cut her ears off. and slit her throat Halloween Day. And then they gave the world Chelseamanning, as I and Victoria and Terry Heath lived on the Manning Civil War ranch. That's not coincidence. That was the government murdering my wives.
And that's who made the JFK archives, was Garrison and Manning.
Manning and my alumni Garrison. I was a teacher at 14, and James Garrison was a teacher with me in Warren, Michigan.
And they call it the Warren Report, which is not coincidence.
My friend, the Russell family, he died sitting at a table with me. And his family appointed Manning and Garrison to be in charge of the Warren Commission. Russell, Russell. He died sitting at a table where I played at Sherry's Lounge. And you know, Greg, Sherry died right after Robin Williams died, and they're both my cousins. And they renamed the Waldo Bridge the Robin Williams Bridge. None of this is coincidence. And I believe that both Sherry Waldo and Robin Williams were murdered. I don't believe Robin Williams murdered himself. His wife was seeking a divorce, and I'm related to her family too. The Snyder family actually built underground military bases and are my cousins also, Snyder truck lines.
Well, your dad looks like Robin Williams quite a bit. And then
Yeah,
I think the story...
Robin Williams looks just like my father and all his brothers, and he's one of my cousins from Michigan. And they murdered my eye doctor. My eye doctor took off my glasses and found a camera and a microphone in my glasses I had made in Michigan back in probably about 1989, 1990. And she was murdered that night next door to Robin Williams' house in Birmingham, Michigan, because she found the microphone and the camera in my glasses that shouldn't have been there. So the government was tracking my life back then. And they had Giles had set me up on a farm from Mazar, who would be Donald Trump's tax attorney in New York, the Mazar family. And they sold me an illegal gun and drug trade being run by the Senate in a 7 square mile farm in Utica, Michigan. And as soon as I saw kids overdosing in my driveway, little 2 and 3 and 4-year-old kids overdosing in my driveway, I stopped. I called the FBI and destroyed a bunch of drugs. But they had an illegal gun and drug trade there in Utica, Michigan back in 1979, 1980. And that's who was watching me in my glasses, the senators, people like Arlen Specter, Senator Graham, who hid me in Detroit media, the Graham family owns, with the Barr and O'Brien families. And when we make these videos, Greg, who have you found copywriting our videos?
Yeah, we found Rupert Murdoch's Storyful organization trying to claim copyright on your videos that you make, just like this one. Not using any copyrighted material, no songs in the background, no possible way that they could try to lay claim on your videos that you make personally, and just trying to steal them out from underneath you. So,
and Rupert Murdoch is in Britain.
Yeah, and this is why on the news now, Hugh, we're seeing British newscasters on every station now. Almost everybody's British that gives us the news now, and all of our movies are British. And you even talked about, before they started doing that, how the Queen was setting up giving us a signal that she had set an outside movie screen and and she was sending a message saying that she was going to be involved in the movies here in America, and sure enough, just like you said, they just come and they just take over everything. It's unbelievable.
Whenever she visited America, she'd stop in New York for a couple of months. And that's
Mhm.
where all the publishers are. Like I'm a publisher at ASCAP BMI, and she had publisher friends that she supported there. People like Elvis Presley's publisher, she backed him. And we've always gotten British news. And Britain attacks every generation of my family because my family rebelled against our own cousin. King James is my cousin, the King James Bible. My cousin Schofield, he wrote the Living Bible. Smith in my family wrote Mormon Bible. My family authored the Bibles, and I'm related to the kings and queens of Europe via my uncle Admiral Byrd. And anybody can go to any library on earth and look at Admiral Byrd's heritage and see I'm related to all the kings of Europe. I'm born in America of English and European descent. And I'm related to all the kings in Europe. There's no lie in this. My family was handed George Washington's sword in the first Mason's Lodge, and then we created America after 1750. I'm sorry. And I'm the Putnam and the Harris and the Fuller families. And then my wife, Terry Heath, she was murdered on the Manning Ranch. And who was Heath in the colonies, Greg?
Yeah, that was one of the generals.
And he was a general for George Washington, correct?
Yeah, he's one of George Washington.
And
Washington's generals.
they rebelled against England.
Mm-hmm. That's why we have Heath, Ohio here.
Ever since we threw England out of America, England has been coming back to America and murdering my family and taking a lot of money from us.
Oh, now I remember. Heath was the general that had the book and that Putnam borrowed to learn how to secure Dorchester Heights in Boston and helped oust the British from Boston.
Right. And then you had the British carpetbaggers in the Civil War. And I was on a Civil War ranch I had purchased for Terry Heath, that same family, related to Sarah Heath Palin, who was running against Obama and Biden. And they murdered her on the Manning Ranch. 2 policemen kidnapped her out of her Head Start CPS office in Wisconsin, drove her across 5 state lines, and then they murdered her when I put her on the Manning Ranch. After she asked me for help, she told me I was the only guy on earth she trusted. And I bought her a Civil War ranch and put her on it. And then they followed her there and murdered her 6 months later. And there's no news about this. Complete blackout. My wives being murdered 4 times in this country with my children. They've murdered, the U.S. government has murdered my entire family with Britain and Israel and Germany, unfortunately, and I'm part German. Ever since 1776, when we took the country and made America, they murdered my family over and over every generation. From my mother, they murdered her entire family leaving church on Clinton River Road. You got the Clintons. And they stole the bus patents, the Chevy van patents, the milk truck patents, and the Fuller transmission from her family, the Fuller family. She was 7 years old when they did that to her. She was raised by foster parents and with her cousin, the Brown family, as Kennedy was killed. And then you got Johnson, was Johnson dating Madeline Duncan Brown as Mr. and Mrs. Brown lived in my home?
Yes.
And see, this is the type of history I'm always involved in.
That was his mistress, was Madeline
There's
Duncan Brown.
My stolen trademark, Bottomline, there's a Bottomline lounge in London too. Not far from Albert Hall, I believe. And then there's Huey Squier Avenues in London and in the UK. And I'm Huey Squier. And all of this is because I'm related to the kings of Europe. And just recently, since the 13th of this month, a British company has been stealing my bank accounts. And they were real smart about it. I shouldn't say that my balance always remained the same, but they were removing money and then putting the money back in by the end of the month. But they had complete access to my bank accounts, and then they were calling in to the bank, attempting to switch my bank account over to a British bank. And they were stealing my retirement. And
Yeah,
luckily,
they steal every last thing they can from you. Your
Yeah.
wives, your money, your business, your everything.
Yeah, Britain always attacks me, and my family created America. There's no lie in this. You know this, Greg.
Yeah.
Where you live
yeah.
in Ohio, you have the museum where the sword that was handed to my family, that sword's sitting there, and it says right on the plaque it was handed to the Putnam,
Mm-hmm.
who was married to who, Harris? Or was he married? I can't even remember.
Fuller.
But here's
His father married Fuller.
I received this letter today. I don't think you can read it, but this is from the fraud department at my bank. And then I got 3 letters, and this is a British car imports. Right here, that's British car imports, and this is all from a British airline. And then the same thing here. This is all from Britain, right from London. And this is Britannia Airports, and they're stealing money right out of my accounts. And they were calling the bank, and this is fraud at US Bank. I got 3 letters today like this. And then here, they name a website in Britain stealing my accounts. And so you see, I got 3 fraud accounts after I made out a fraud report. The 3 different fraud letters from my bank where they're stealing my retirement. And all of it's being done from Britain, where they steal the videos we make here. People like Rupert Murdoch, who lies about, no, he admitted he knowingly lied about Donald Trump in the last election. He admittedly lied. He's being sued for $1.5 billion as he's stealing my bank account, my retirement, and copywriting my videos. My video has nothing at all to do with Rupert Murdoch, nothing. I don't live in London. I was born in America. I am related to the London royal family and to the other kings of Europe, but it has nothing, they have no right to copyright my material.
Definitely not. That has got to be illegal.
Yeah. And because I'm a publisher, I have a right to put copyright in the year and the month and the day, and even published automatically. I mean, I can do that automatically. I don't even have to write the copyright office. I make this video, I put copyright and published by Bottomline Publishing. I'm a publisher at ASCAP BMI. The military backs me. Only in my case, the military didn't back me. So
Instead, they attacked the whole country to hide the theft.
Yeah, government servants are helping the London Queen murder my family members every generation, because they get payola from them. And then they run illegal military gun and drug trades.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been doing this since forever. Look at how much military equipment did Biden leave in Afghanistan?
It's like
Awful lot.
85 billion. Yeah.
How much?
About
Jason.
85 billion. I think he's right. Yeah.
85 billion. And they resell that. They resell that, and then they get drugs and guns. They get drugs and money for the military equipment. They sell it to Mexican cartels and China. And then they bring the drugs to America and they sell the drugs for money, and that's how they fund their elections. And this is what's really going on in America. And my father stopped this in '63, just before they murdered Kennedy. And then I stopped it in '79, '80. And they put me in jail for a year, and the drug dealers, they made them movie stars, Greg. They gave you Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star. They gave you White Boy Rick in movies in Hollywood. He was 15 years old when I stopped that gun and drug trade. He had nothing to do with it. He lived 120 miles away. The only thing he knew about that illegal gun and drug trade is what I told him as he gave me a sandwich at Whitmore Lake, where Ike Turner was my semi-mechanic with Webb as they built the Webb telescope. My life is always stolen by Hollywood and the London Throne, and God knows who else. I just ran into a movie today, Greg. It's a TV series called Invasion. I don't know if you've ever seen that there in Ohio.
I haven't come across it yet.
But they actually have a character in it who's a black man, and this TV series was made, and his name is Huey. And there's a scene in episode 13 where the CIA agent Huey comes out and says, "This is Huey's bottom line."
Wow.
It's right in the TV series. And the whole TV series marks my life as they murdered my wives.
Well,
And
we've sure seen a lot of movies and TV series that have marked your life like just to a T.
And this is how the CIA and the FBI getting their payola from the illegal gun and drug trade via the senators. They hide me in these movies.
Well, you mentioned 13. That's like Warehouse 13 that you were talking about. We have the Friday the 13th episode.
Who ran Warehouse 13?
Yeah, I don't remember who was.
I'll just tell you, Mrs. Fredericks. Mrs. Fredericks.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
That's my murdered wife, Nancy Fredericks. And they do this to me in thousands of movies. I never exist. No news about my 4 dismembered, murdered wives, or dozens of kids they've murdered as they steal my trademark bottom line, steal my mother's patents, and murder our whole family. 5 times. My whole family's been murdered 5 times since the day they murdered my family member, Admiral Byrd. And there's no lie in this. They even gave the world a fake diary after they murdered Admiral Byrd. Hid me behind UFOs all my life. And my family built Area 51. I was kidnapped at 4. You got S4, Squier 4, as they murdered my identical twin. There's no lie in this, Greg. And they've marked me in everything. And you know this, Greg, but the average person doesn't. I don't.
Oh, I've seen shows where the character's name is Huey and he's wearing a Hall & Oates t-shirt, you know. Yeah, his superpower is to become invisible, you know, just like they made you invisible.
Yeah, I don't exist. And I'm an old man, and they're stealing my retirement from Britain.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
You know, I'm Huey, 53, the love bug Herbie. I'm Herbie.
Yeah.
I went to church with Disney. Do you understand all of this?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then you get the Beatles. Well, what's a Beetle? Oh, it's a Volkswagen car from Germany. Um, then you get the Rolling Stones telling you he killed Kennedys. After all, me and Hugh killed the Kennedys. And I signed his contract in Michigan at local 5 union musicians so he could play in the stadiums there. In the Steel Wheels concert. Think about this, the Steel Wheels concert. And my family ran the auto companies.
Yeah.
I built the assembly lines for the auto companies. And Mick Jagger was the Steel Wheels concert. And gee, they caught him in Canada with the very drugs I stopped. 10 years later, going back to London, and what does the Queen do? She knights him for singing "He Killed Your President." And everybody thinks London is their friend, and they're not.
Not at all.
London has been attacking the families that created America ever since that war ended. She never stopped.
Yep, they need to be chased out of the news. They need to be chased out of running music.
Rupert Murdoch has no business in our elections. They should stop him from giving any news about America's elections, especially after he admitted he knew all his reporters were lying and he aired it anyways for money.
Yeah.
So he interfered with America's elections as he trademarked my videos, which he has no right to.
Right.
And they still allow him to give America their election news?
I mean, we should be putting sanctions on Great Britain, for an act like that. Like we would, like we say we would do to Russia when we pretend like they're interfering in the election.
If you or I did that, if you or I or Chase did that, it would be called treason. And they can hang us for that. But it's okay when London does it, and she knights the very people that sing about murdering your president.
Right. And then Mick Jagger married Hall on top of that.
Yeah, the family that kidnapped me and murdered my twin.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
And all of this happened as my family piloted the Enterprise in the Vietnam War, and my brother-in-law helped run Fort Knox, and my other cousin ran Camp Lejeune. All of this was going on in the background. And I'm a relative of Kennedy. My daughter was kidnapped with one of the Kennedy children.
Oh, there's so much we could say about the Star Trek and the Enterprise too, and all the Star Trek series. Man, there's so much we could get into just on Star Trek.
They make Star Trek in Canada now. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, Hugh Borg and Q.
And Agatha Christie is my aunt. And you got Agatha Christie, arsenic and old lace on the day they murdered 5 Duncan kids. At the very same time they murdered President John F. Kennedy, they murdered 5 Duncan kids next door to my family's farm with arsenic. And you got arsenic and old lace from Agatha Christie, whose actual name is Miller. And gee, I bought Miller a house on Marion Street, right next to the tank arsenal.
Yep. Respond to a message here real quick.
I don't know what else you want to talk about, Greg.
Well, you mentioned Friday the 13th there, and I was thinking about how Friday the 13th part 2, Jason kills Terry and Victoria, 2 of your murdered wives. They were sitting together on the bench at the beginning of the video, how they were murdered and everything. The boyfriend was murdered as he was sitting in the wheelchair calling Victoria's name. And of course, Victoria was in a wheelchair. And, Terry was murdered in the show right after seeing a guy hanging from a tree. And
her
then they hung her.
Terry's murdered son was Jason.
Yeah. That's unreal. That's how close they mark you.
They marked me unbelievably. My aunt, who stole part of my inheritance, was Annabelle, and you got Annabelle the doll. My sister married Chucky, and you got Chucky the doll. And they hide me. I never get a chance to say any truth in America after they murder dozens and dozens of kids in Michigan, in Tennessee. And now they murdered 5 of my kids 2 years ago. They murdered my brother who ran Fort Knox. They murdered his son.
Hmm.
They murdered my brother-in-law with drugs. They murdered him with drugs, Greg. As I sat in L. Brooks Patterson's office, they murdered 5 kids in my family. They
Yeah.
murdered Kiki. Kiki was murdered Christmas Day after being raped.
Hmm.
And they murdered her daughter and my daughter Serena.
Yeah.
They murdered
Oh,
my bass player's kid, Tony. They murdered the guy that ran Fort Knox, his son Tony.
hmm.
And then they murdered 2 more kids in Indiana where I was staying with the Vredenberg family,
Hmm.
who were supposed to put me on video because they owned the 9/11 Truther site, but they never told my story because a gay man talked them out of it. Said if you tell his story, they'll kill you next. So they chickened out and never told my truth. But they took all this money in while I sat there,
Yeah.
sold T-shirts and cups, and never told the truth of 9/11.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, pretty pathetic of them. They really should feel guilty for stealing that money and for
They,
never telling the truth.
they won't feel
But my
guilty.
understanding, weren't they criminals to begin with? So it kind of makes sense. Now
I'm
we
not,
lost Jace because but he told us that he told me before he came on that his battery was weak on his phone, so that he was probably not going to be able to stay too long anyway. So just let you know.
okay. Okay. Uh, what
But
else
we
you?
can stop it there, Hugh. I'm getting phone calls and stuff, and I think I probably need to answer some of those. But
I hope they
that's a
don't
lot
tell
of good
you.
information.
I hope they don't tell you I'm a conspiracy theory again. Maybe you should just put this video up on your Facebook
Yeah.
because I'm definitely not a conspiracy theory. And I would like when your book is finished and we release it, I would like to make a video about the book and try to sell it on YouTube and Facebook
Yeah, I understand.
and
Yeah.
make you some money there.
Yeah, they attack us for telling the just exactly literally what happened. And that's just unbelievable the way they do that. And we can't even tell exactly what happened literally without them calling it a conspiracy theory. Yeah, on YouTube and
Oh,
shutting it
they
down.
mark
It's
me in all the movies, steal my first, last, middle name, steal my trademark,
yeah. I mean, why is your name
steal
used?
all
I
my
mean,
family's patents, then they put it in movies. And if I say they did that, I'm a conspiracy theory.
Mayor Hugh of Hughville in Back to the Future 3. I mean, it never ends, you know.
No, no, huge bottom line. And I own the trademark for Bottomline. And now they're stealing my bank account from Britain.
Mm-hmm.
And gee, they did this as they didn't King just kick out Markle?
Yeah, supposedly, right?
Yeah,
So
and
she can come over here and steal
they'll
movies
be
and make
back in
movies.
America, but they don't want to be in the media, and they'll take over your media again.
Yeah, they already
Yeah.
have.
And
You
they'll
can't
give
watch
you
any media without seeing British people giving us their news now.
right, and they'll give you your news stories for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll all
At
be coming
least.
right from the London throne,
Yeah.
who attacks every generation of my family. And
It's crystal clear what they're
here's
doing.
my retirement being stolen right from London. As they
Right.
try to copyright every video you and I make here in America. It's unbelievable.
And our presidents and Congress have sold us out to them. And
Yeah, and they call me the conspiracy theory.
right.
And my family created America. I'm not, all the people on American money are related to me.
If we want to get America back anything like it used to be, we'll have to get your story out there and dig up all this all these problems from the very roots as far back as necessary and correct history.
I don't think you'll be able to. Too many senators are getting payola from the guns and drugs and from the kings of Europe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't think this country will ever come back.
I don't either, to be honest.
But all three parties are part of it: the Republicans, the Democrats, and the Independents. The Independents,
I just see a future of deterioration until it falls apart. There's nothing left. That's all I see. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to spread this
you've
message.
been taken over, and you're a third world nation now.
Yeah.
All your tax dollars go to that fake Israel.
Hmm.
And I don't hate Israel. I'm a Jew, but I do know it's fake.
Just the money they spent in Israel and Ukraine this year could have paid for our health care, or a big chunk of it, and then I wouldn't have to pay $1,100 a month for Obamacare,
No, I'm very aware of all of this. And Obama was groomed in Kenya, the London Throne's country. They owned Kenya. He was groomed to be in your White House by the London Queen. And I don't
Right.
think, where did a little black boy in Kenya get the money to go to Harvard?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Queen gave it to him. The Queen is my cousin. She murdered my wives as she groomed Obama and then set him up in Chicago and 15 other states with houses. And I don't think this. I know this.
Right. It's crystal clear. I get it. Well, we better stop it. Yeah.